Going live, preparing, just firing up here. Got my live stats up. And we're ready to rock and roll. All right. I see some folks in the live chat here. Wonderful. All right, Hoosier Nation. So I'm still trying to formulate my thoughts on exactly what happened. It was by far one of the most depressing and infuriating games I have watched in a long time. Through 28 minutes, Indiana looked like a carcass of who they've been all year. One thing you can count on this season from Indiana was that they would bring the fight. They would show stretches, extended stretches of good play. They would compete. That wasn't the case for 28 minutes. And then the team completely turned things around in one of the most stunning comeback wins I can recall, especially from an Indiana basketball team. And frankly, when I look at all of college basketball this season, based on how the first chunk of that game went to what it became, and for Indiana against Michigan, who had beaten Indiana 9 straight times, and in the Big Ten tournament, which has been cursed for the Hoosiers really since its inception, we're now sitting here talking to you about an Indiana 5-point win over the Michigan Wolverines in the second round of the Big Ten tournament. And IU keeps their NCAA tournament hopes alive. We're going to dive into that and so much more here on episode 244 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We're recording this edition, the special edition of the Hoosier Sound, on Thursday, March 10th, 2022, where I'm your host, Nathan Christian. Here with me is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, welcome back to the show. It's awesome, isn't it, to do exciting and positive podcast episodes in March during important times of the season? Take after it, Matt. I mean, this team looked completely disinterested, out of the game, lackadaisical. You can use whatever negative adjective you want. And guess what? We're here talking about an Indiana win.
You know, so many times this year, Nathan, we've remarked how it's unfortunate how there's 40 minutes in a basketball game because IU won 30 of them. Today was not that game. Today, that did not happen. IU did not win for 30 minutes of this game. In fact, IU was getting run out of the gym for the first 30 minutes of the game. First 28 minutes of the game, actually, is what I should say. And around the 12-minute mark, something happened. Something happened, Nathan. At the 12-minute mark.
What do you think happened?
What happened was they took Race Thompson off the floor. That is what happened. Now, it's nothing. That is nothing. Like it looks bad for Race Thompson, right? That this run happened without him on the floor. And I was getting texts from Aunt Wright last night saying that Race Thompson's a pro. And I still agree, by the way, in that statement. However, this was just not the matchup for him. Like Moussa Diabate and Hunter Dickinson are mismatches against Race Thompson. You know who is not a mismatch on Moussa Diabate? Jordan Geronimo. Jordan Geronimo is not. And the staff, great minds think alike. The staff realized this at the 12-minute mark, that Diabate was too physically imposing, too athletic for Race Thompson to handle. He just was. And Race is, like I said before, probably going to be a pro. But Diabate is a freak. He's going to be a first-round pick. He's incredible. And he's a phenom, right? He's a 5-star freshman. It was all, Big Ten freshman first team.
All the accolades.
All the accolades that a freshman could possibly get. He'd probably get mentioned or be at least in the running for a freshman All-American team. That's how good he is. And Thompson struggled today. He really did. Trace as well struggled defensively against the both of them. But let's give props where props are due. Geronimo came in, did a fantastic job, and was what he brought to the defense was, because this whole run, sure, we hit some shots, which was fantastic and it helped. But the problem for IU wasn't about hitting shots at the beginning of the second half. It was that Michigan was just making shots over and over and over again because people had to overhelp. When Geronimo was in, he brought in length, he brought in athleticism, and he brought in a level of hustle that Race Thompson, frankly, just did not have today. And you know what? And that's props to the staff for realizing who they had to plug in and the piece that had to go correctly. And Woodson said in the post game, and he was sitting in front of the team, he said, Geronimo stepped in today. Tomorrow that could be Leo. That could be Scoop.
Bates Scoop. Exactly.
Yeah. And he literally said that word for word. I'm just quoting one of Andrew Brown's, one of the friends of the show, one of his videos from after the game, his post game talk to the team. And I think that's the attitude the staff needs to have. We have players who can come in and play better than the starters. For instance, Trey Galloway today was fantastic. Played 28 minutes on his first game back. Was much better than Parker Stewart today, who only played 13. Parker Stewart started. Trey Galloway finished the game, right? Same thing with Miller Kopp played 33 minutes. Don't get me wrong, but Finney's 19 minutes were also fantastic. And he completely agree. He came in and partnered with Xavier Johnson. This team has people that we have certain lineups that play really well together. Right. And I think we might have found something with that closing lineup and Geronimo that's really going to work out well. Also, Geronimo, by the way, please keep shooting 3-pointers. Your 3-point shot looks great. He hit 1 of 2 today, and it was a big 3 at that he hit in the first half, I believe, to stem a scoring tide that the Michigan Wolverines had. But back to what I said before about when I started my statement, I said 30 minutes, we talked about the game not being 40 minutes. There's so many games this year that we have blown leads. Wisconsin, to name one of many games, even more recently.
We're not going to go through
we can go over
this
list.
It's an embarrassing list. Yeah.
There's a lot of times that IU has given up leads or gone on big runs and then ultimately ended up short.
And how the tables have turned, man.
Exactly. Finally, IU is on the other end.
Someone did this. Indiana did this to someone else rather than receiving this, and it's great to see.
The law of averages. It can't happen too many times in a row to us and not happen for us. That'd be beneficial to us. Eventually. And today was fine. In the most important game of the season, it happened. And I mean, we gave credit to Geronimo, right? I'm sure you're going to give credit to Trace and Xavier Johnson here in a minute because they deserve all the credit. But I wanted to lead off the show with Geronimo because he's a guy that I thought, and everybody I think agreed, probably deserved a bit more minutes down the stretch this year. Just because when he comes to the game, there's a hustle and a level of athleticism that just isn't there when Race Thompson's in the game. And that's not that Race Thompson is, not hustling. It's just that Geronimo's athleticism and length and verticality allows him to do slightly different things than Race Thompson. And it's a tool that this team has needed, especially the rebounding, that Race Thompson just doesn't give them, and that's no fault of Race's own. So I am just so proud of the team for pulling this out and giving us a happy podcast because at the 12-minute mark, I was ready. I'm sitting there. I was
out.
Teaching.
Matt, I was out. I turned it off.
Yeah,
I turned it off.
I almost did. I turned off the screen in my class because the kids were starting to root for Michigan. And I was like, I'm about this close to giving you guys a pop quiz. I'm this close to giving you a pop quiz. And then as they started to come back, I turned it back on. The entire class was rooting for IU, and I made a couple new IU fans here in Florida. But it was very stressful. I was stressed out.
Of course. And I think all of Hoosier Nation was. So I was like I'm sure many of you who watch the game, right? We have full-time jobs here as we watch IU basketball play during the middle of a weekday. I said, look, lunch break is up. Indiana's down by 17, 60-43 against a team that owns us in the Big Ten tournament. Indiana's lost 7 of their last 9 games. It's a good run. Hoosiers did some good things. We'll see you next year, or at least see in the NIT, but who cares? So then Indiana kept cutting the deficit and scratching and clawing away. 15 points, 13, 10, 8. And I said, look, I can't jinx it now. I mean, look, it's just, these are the rules. I don't make up the rules. I don't make up the rules, folks. I can't do that for Hoosier Nation. Can't turn it back on. I'm just going to focus on my job. And we'll see what happens at the end of the day. And Indiana got the win. And I still don't think that's completely settled into a lot of people who watch this team on a regular basis. I see the live chat is really hopping right now. Great to see it. Jack says, what a win, with I think it's 5 exclamation points. I think that's an appropriate number given the win for the Hoosiers. Jack says he was at the game. And I mean, I'll tell you this, coming through the television, the crowd sounded amazing in the second half. And especially after I went back and looked at the highlights down the stretch, and yeah, I regret my decision to turn it off, to say the least. Jevin was our on-site correspondent for Indiana HQ. He was messaging me how great the crowd was, how crazy the comeback was, and look, this is the reward you get now. You get to do it all over again in less than 24 hours. I see Josh's comment in the live chat, and I feel like Josh and I maybe share some similarities here. He says he checked the score early second half. He was mad. He could not believe that Indiana came back to win. I can tell you that one of our co-founders at Indiana HQ, Dakota, went back to his life as a surgeon in the operating room, and he came back about an hour after the game ended and said, "What?" in all caps. Can't believe this happened. And I think it's par for the course here for Hoosier Nation. IU trailed 60-43 with 12:52 to go. And after that point, they outscored the mean, mighty Michigan Wolverines 31-9. And folks, I mean, Michigan over the last couple of weeks, I mean, really after you can look back sort of as a landmark point in their season. The week of that Juwan Howard fight, they had just won at Iowa a few days before that game.
Yeah,
they were playing well against Wisconsin until the final 10 minutes when things disintegrated. After the fight with Phil Martelli as head coach, they beat Rutgers in Ann Arbor. Competitive game against Illinois. Big lopsided win over Michigan State. Competitive game against Iowa. Big road win at Ohio State, where the Wolverines crushed the Buckeyes in the second half.
Yeah.
And when you saw Michigan carry that over into the first half against Indiana, I said, well, what are we doing here? What are we wasting our time for? Indiana, as much as the comeback was incredible, it was as disheartening to see the first 25 minutes of that game, because as folks, you and I included, Matt, who have watched basically every minute of every game this season, they just looked flat for the first half. And whatever they tried on offense didn't work. Whatever they tried on defense didn't work. Of course, it didn't help that Xavier Johnson was plagued with foul trouble once again. And when he finally had a chance to play, subtext, Big Ten refs, a little shade there, finally had a chance to play, Johnson in the second half completely changed the dynamic in the game, as he's prone to do. This is, we can say Johnson is plagued by foul trouble throughout the season, but he's also prone to being a difference-making point guard at a high level, at a top point guard level in the Big Ten, maybe even top 10 or 15 in the country. In the second half alone, Johnson had 9.6 rebounds and 7 assists. In the second half alone. And of course, with 18 minutes left, he picks up his third and he hangs in there and he sits on the sideline and he ruminates in his own thoughts, and then bang, comes out of the gates in crunch time, helps Indiana get the win. A lot of people were giving credit to Devontae Jones at halftime, Michigan's point guard, saying, oh, he might be the best point guard in the Big Ten. He might be the most impactful transfer point guard in the country. Well, what you saw with Xavier Johnson was exceptional performance. We sent out a tweet on Indiana HQ earlier today. The Johnson effectively is at a 16.4 rebounds, 6 or 7 assist clip over the last 6 games. Matt, Xavier Johnson can really push Indiana into Saturday and Sunday this weekend. He could push Indiana if the Hoosiers get into the field, and we'll talk about that a little later. He's capable of winning tournament games if Indiana gets into March Madness. Again, try to put into words exactly how great Xavier Johnson has been, especially in the last month or so.
Yeah, I think Xavier Johnson, to my surprise, and to many, I think, especially I've given his performance at the beginning of the year, has quickly become IU's most efficient player, which is insane to me, given that he's the same guy that almost single-handedly lost us the Syracuse game and almost
Wisconsin
single-handedly lost us the Wisconsin game. At the beginning of the year. His growth has been remarkable as the year has gone on. He's, again, I think I remarked this around the Northwestern game. I was talking about the people that had improved this year, and I said Xavier Johnson had improved, and he had improved a lot. Yeah. And he just hadn't improved as much as he has in his last couple of games. And if he continues to keep this up, and let's say we get some games in March, right? Let's say we get into March and we win a couple.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this staff is going to put themselves in a position to go after some of the best transfers in the transfer portal next year, given what they can show has happened to Xavier Johnson this year and the growth and the progress he has shown. Because he has gone from a guy that was off the radar for the most part on draft boards to a guy that's now getting discussions for possible second round pick. And whispers on some draft boards as a possible a sneaky guy. And that was not something that we would have ever thought would even happen after this Wisconsin and Syracuse meltdowns. So, I mean, that's on Xavier Johnson to put in the work, but that's also on the staff to find him and to locate a guy that can come in and immediately help the program.
So here's the thing with Xavier, right? This was our tweet over his last 6 games. Johnson is averaging 18.7 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 6.5 assists. He's also 32 of 36 from the free throw line over the last 6 games. That's an 89% clip. Absolutely wonderful to see. Again, when you look at his numbers, November, December, January, Johnson was at about 10.5 points per game, about 3.5 rebounds, about 4 assists. So again, November, December, January, 10.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 4 assists.
Yeah.
February, March, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. So you see the distinct improvement there. That's a lot of what Hoosier fans have been begging for in a coach and a coaching staff to help with in-season development, not just preseason or off-season development. In the year, how do players get better? That's what you saw out of Xavier Johnson. And Matt, I loved your comment about depth earlier, because so much we've heard over the last few years that Indiana's got depth. Indiana can go 8 deep, 9 deep, 10 deep. Well, if you don't give players like Jordan Geronimo, and he was the guy today, if you don't give them the chance to make a big impact, and I said Geronimo was the guy, but you were right. Galloway got 17 minutes today. Finney got plenty of playing time today. In fact, Galloway had more than that. Galloway
had 28 and Finney
ended up with 28. Yeah, Finney with 19. You really get extra benefit from your depth in a tournament scenario. Why is that? Well, tomorrow, someone like Race Thompson only played 20 minutes today. Yeah. Well, guess what? He's going to have a little bit more juice in his level of fatigue and a level of in his legs and his arms and his conditioning to go a little bit longer. Someone like Parker Stewart, only 13 minutes today. Maybe tomorrow Indiana goes out there and asks him to play 30 or 33 or 35. Michael Durr, 4 minutes today. Maybe he has to play 15 or 20 against Kofi Coburn against the Illini, and that doesn't get to Tamar Bates, who was a DNP today. Of course, we know how important of a bench player he's been throughout the season. Indiana's depth, and again, we've never seen this because Indiana hasn't won games of consequence in tournament play
Yeah.
Indiana's depth could really pay dividends here over this weekend and possibly next week in the actual March Madness.
I'm going to hope that Jordan Geronimo's performance today propels somebody like Tamar Bates to have a good performance tomorrow, because he's going to be able to go, hey, if I'm getting minutes and I play well, they're going to stick with me, right? If I come in and I hit 2 shots and I get a couple steals, all of a sudden, like I'm going to be playing 20 minutes this game, right? And
there you go.
Geronimo and Thompson literally split minutes this game. They played 20 minutes, and I don't think anybody would have guessed that Race Thompson would only play 20 minutes this game when it's the most important game of the season. Yeah. But he did. And tomorrow, Miller Kopp had 33 this game, which is a lot for Miller Kopp. I thought he played very well today, actually. Yeah. He might play 13 tomorrow.
That's it.
Like Parker Stewart. And I think that will be the case. In fact, I'm gonna,
you're gonna call it.
I'm gonna skip it and go ahead. And I do think Tamar Bates plays like 20 minutes tomorrow. I think we're going to see a lot of him, because he's somebody that against those Illinois wings can really match up against and actually give them a bit of a headache on the defensive end. So I'd like to see that personally. But
it's just great to see the coaching staff really put their chips in.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't a half-assed move by the coaching staff. It wasn't a matter of, hey, let's try Geronimo. Let's try Galloway.
The season was on the line. It was over. It like 2 more baskets, and
this is different.
It's hard for the team to come back, right? Like we were down 4. What was it? We were down
17.
17.
17 points.
We're down 17. It goes over 20 points, and you basically, the team just kind of, as bad as it sounds, like kind of just shipping it. They were about to do that. This was a last-ditch effort by the staff, and they got it right. So congratulations to the staff.
Absolutely. I see Jack's comment in the live chat, by the way. He says, is Indiana in the field right now? We will answer that question, Jack. Stay tuned here. That's coming up here in just a few minutes. But go ahead, Matt. You were about to say something.
We've gone, how long? 28 minutes of this podcast? 20 minutes of this podcast? Without talking in length about Trace Jackson Davis's performance today.
Crazy, incredible, every adjective to describe how bad it was at the start and how great it was at the end.
Yeah, and Nathan, I said probably right around the 14-minute mark in the second half, 14 minutes left. I remarked and I said on Twitter that Hunter Dickinson was taking it to Trace Jackson Davis and showing that he was the better player.
Yeah, you have some tweets out there. You do.
Yeah, there are some tweets out there.
You got some tweets out there.
I got some receipts now. But I tweeted that, and at the time, I was right. Okay, I was. Inarguably so. I was correct. Hunter Dixon had 15. I believe Trace had 5 points.
Yeah,
maybe at that time.
It wasn't close.
And he was like 2 of 7 from the field. Okay. It was not close.
Yeah.
But then after that, Trace Jackson Davis went on to score 19 points for the remainder of the second half.
Yep.
Had 3 blocks and 3 rebounds to end the half. Incredible performance.
Unbelievable.
I do not know what unlocked it. I know on Twitter I said you could tell he played. I think what happened was, and honestly, my observation is, and I'm no basketball, super, I'm not out there, doing Jordan Sperber stuff, right? That's not me.
No, not a PhD in basketball.
Correct. I don't have a PhD, but I think what I saw Trace and how he changed his play style was in the first half, he was timid. And you can't play basketball timid. He was afraid of Hunter Dickinson. He was afraid of Moussa Diabate. At some point in the second half, something clicked in his head, and he looked up at the scoreboard, saw us down 17, and said, "You know what? What's the worst that can happen if I go at this guy? Right? What's the worst that can happen?" He kind of just said, "F it," right? And said, "I'm just gonna go at this dude." And I'm going to try my hardest to score through him. I'm not going to try to finesse it around him. I'm not going to try to maybe my team might be open for 3, right? He kind of just said, you know what? I'm just going to go. If I get blocked, I get blocked. So what? I'm not afraid of it anymore. And he stopped playing afraid. He stopped playing timid. He started playing aggressive, and he started playing with increased physicality. And when he did that, he did something he hasn't done all year, which is that when his matchup is bigger and more skilled than he is, and Hunter Dickinson is a much more skilled player.
True.
He backs down. He gets timid, and he took it to Hunter Dickinson and
downhill attack
to the rim. Or when he was back to the basket, he went into his body instead of trying to fade away or do some jump hook or whatever he was trying to do. He just went towards the basket, and it worked. Because guess what? He's more athletic than almost 99% of basketball players. And he needs to understand that. And sometimes he just players get in their own heads or whatever. But I think he needs to have this attitude where he's got to be like, they have to make a super play. It's what they call it in esports. They got to make a super play. They got to make an excellent defensive play in order for them to stop me. And you know what? If they do that, so what? Whatever I end up on SportsCenter, I don't care. And he did that, and it worked. And I would love to see him do that against Kofi Coburn, because I think
similar situation.
That's a matchup that Trace has an advantage. Trace is quicker than Kofi.
He is.
Don't get me wrong. Kofi's stronger than Trace. Kofi's bigger than Trace, but Trace is quicker and he can jump higher. All right. Yeah, and I want to see Trace take it to Kofi and not be afraid of ending up on a block compilation.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And there's still time for this to change, but I think to summarize that in some capacity, I think Trace Jackson Davis at some point got sick of, hey, how can Trace Jackson Davis adapt or adjust to Hunter Dickinson or to Kofi Coburn or to Zach Edey or to Travion Williams or to EJ Liddell? And I think in a nutshell, Trey said, well, I'm going to make these guys adjust to me. I'm going to make them adapt to me and my play style and my athleticism and my skill profile. And you saw it completely change. I do think, looking back, extreme hindsight here, the basket he scored at the end of the first half always, whether it's for Indiana or for a lot of other teams across college basketball here, the end of the first, get back, it maybe set nerves a little bit, maybe some. I think Jackson scored into the half a few seconds before halftime. It cut to 13. Michigan pushed it back up to 17 in the first few minutes after halftime. That seemed to maybe settle him down just a little, even in the second half. As Michigan was growing their lead, you saw Jackson Davis do some good things in the first few minutes.
Hey guys, I think Nathan is lagging a bit. So he's probably going to be back here in a second. Exactly. But anyways, now that I have a solo podcast to talk about to you guys by myself, I think Nathan was talking about that he was talking about how Trace Jackson Davis has elevated his game in this game. But so far this season, he was really struggling in recent games. I know that's something I remarked about the last time I was on the podcast, and it didn't really change when we lost to Purdue, even though he did play better against Purdue. But it finally he had a trademark Trace like half. He didn't play a full great game, but he definitely had a half, right, Nathan?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm going to hang off a video here for just a second. Not sure what happened. I'll turn my video back on in just a moment here, as long as I confirm that everything is smooth sailing. Ultimately, I just really liked seeing that Jackson Davis, as you said, Matt, took it to his opponent. I thought the basket at the end of the first half turned things around. And now what's great is, right, that was a legacy type of game for TJD. I think now people, no matter what Jackson Davis chooses to do after the season, will remember Jackson Davis for that record-setting performance against Marshall, for an unbelievable game at home against Ohio State, and now his insane second half performance against Michigan to bring this team from behind. I have to say, you look back from the start of the year, Indiana's been breaking a lot of slumps, folks, right? A lot of skids, a lot of streaks, right? Indiana did it against Purdue when they beat the Boilermakers in Assembly Hall. They did it against Michigan here, winning this game after 9 straight losses to the Wolverines. They did it on the road after the number of road losses to end last year. They found a way to grab a few road wins this year. The Big Ten tournament skid as far as winning significant games, getting to the Friday part of the Big Ten tournament. We'll see if they can get to the Saturday part. I thought it was funny that if you look back at the history of the Big Ten tournament, the 9 seed, believe it or not, had the worst record of all the seeds in the field. And so it's funny to see that play out by win percentage, even going back to the inception of the conference tournament. And then, of course, you have Indiana, their struggles in this event. I think ESPN coverage said that Indiana the second worst win percentage in this event, just ahead of Northwestern. So IU, right, slaying some of these demons. And now the Hoosiers, through their defense, through Xavier Johnson, Jackson Davis, the bench, they've got a lot more to play for than we might think. So let's transition real quick, Matt, to Indiana's NCAA tournament hopes. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I did want to send out a reminder to everyone listening. You can still go to whatever app you use to listen to podcasts or to watch podcasts if they're on YouTube, and go take a look at our podcast episode from Tuesday night, where we had Delphi Brackets on as a guest with their key contributor, co-founder, founder, Brian Tonsoni. He walked through the bracketing process, what Indiana has to do. His comment from Tuesday night was Indiana, to get into the discussion, had to beat Michigan. And well, the Hoosiers did that. So let's talk a little bit about Indiana's NCAA tournament hopes. You can find this podcast on YouTube, whatever app you listen to podcasts. Episode 243, Delphi Brackets joined us as a guest. Now, Matt, speaking of Delphi Brackets, they released a tweet around 5:30 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday that said right now they are looking at 17 teams for 8 spots. Those teams are Wyoming, Rutgers, Miami, Notre Dame, Michigan, SMU, VCU, Xavier, Dayton, Oklahoma, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, Oregon, Colorado, Virginia, Wake Forest, and Indiana. Over the last day or two, Matt, Indiana's gotten a lot of help. Florida, lost.
Yep.
Xavier, lost. Wake Forest, lost. What are your thoughts here as far as IU's NCAA tournament chances are? They have 4 quad 1 wins, no quad 3 or quad 4 losses. How much do you think Indiana helped their case by winning today?
Well, I mean, they could only help their case by winning. We were out of it 100% if we had lost today. Okay, like the discussion was over. There was not a discussion to be had if we did not win today. So obviously, greatly increased our chances of getting it by winning today. Now, the question is, do we need to win tomorrow to get into the tournament? Because that's a tough ask. Because Illinois is the number 1 seed in the conference, and coming off of a fantastic win over Wisconsin. Or Iowa, sorry. And we're sitting here now needing to beat one of the best teams in the country, which is unfortunate because I don't think that's going to happen. But I think what we need tomorrow is not a win, but a good loss tomorrow. I think in the eyes of the committee, if we were to lose by 1 possession, by 2 possessions in a close game down the stretch, I think that's enough for the committee to go last 3 games, a very extremely close loss on the road to Purdue, a game in which was 1 possession with about less than 2 minutes left. A win over Michigan, comeback victory over a hot streaking Michigan team, and then a close game with Illinois on less than a day's rest.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
you're building a story there that appeals
Right.
to the selection committee, even though, as Coach Tonsoni told us on Tuesday night, recent performance is not supposed to be part of the equation. I can't help but wonder if still there is some recency bias that happens in the selection room, even when it's not supposed to be that way.
I think there should be. Do you want the teams that are playing the best going into the tournament? I don't understand what, because people are like, got 203rd strength of schedule, right? Or non-conference
it's even
strength
worse.
of schedule.
It's in the 300s for non-conference.
Right. It's like we have the 302nd best non-conference schedule. Like, I get that. It's awful. It's terrible.
It's horrible.
It's horrible. However, I think we have proven that we can hang with the big teams. And I think for the selection committee, seeing that we've beaten a Michigan team, somebody that beat us earlier this year, by the way, at home, spanked us, and shown that we've beaten Purdue and Ohio State, I think that's enough for the committee to put us in. Now, we do need to root for chaos and for a lot of these teams to lose.
Yeah.
Because if everybody keeps winning, obviously that hurts IU's chances of getting in. Like, for instance, Oregon and Colorado, two teams that we were looking at for those spots, are playing right now. So one of those will be eliminated, surely, unless they tie.
Yeah.
We do need somebody like Wyoming to lose, who's playing UNLV right now. What looks like a disgusting basketball game because it's 18-8 with 7 minutes left in the half. And
I see your point, though. Yeah.
We need teams to not steal bids. For instance, we need a lot of the smaller conferences. We're going to be rooting for the number one seeds in those conferences. I feel comfortable saying that IU's probably in, given today's performance.
Yeah.
I 17 teams, and a lot of them are teams that are, either falling off or going to be in hard matchups down the stretch and in worse conferences. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that IU's win over Michigan is going to be good enough to secure it. However, I wouldn't mind if we moved up to the 11 line, like I've said before, because right now we're on the 12 line and we have to play a game to get into the actual tournament, which is not where we want to be.
Yep, exactly. And overall, I think John Rothstein kind of jumped the gun a little bit, saying Indiana's in the field. I would not go so far as to say Indiana's locked themselves into the NCAA tournament. I think that's the general consensus among bracketology sites that I see online. I do want to read off a quote from the Athletics Bubble Watch that says, hey, Indiana could not have begun its 8-9 tournament matchup with Michigan any worse. The Hoosiers were sluggish, slow, totally out of ideas, defensively beaten to every spot on that end of the court. Trace Jackson Davis didn't show up, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it means Indiana is still in this thing. At bare minimum, it was IU's fourth quad one win. It's now 4-7 in quad one, 3-4 in quad two, 5-1 in quad three, with that quad three loss coming to Rutgers at home. By the way, folks, you do want to be rooting for Rutgers tomorrow against Iowa because they're right on the fringe. I said a moment ago, Indiana has no quad three or quad four losses. That's because you become a quad three loss when your home defeat to Rutgers comes to the 76th ranked team in the net. A top 75 home loss is quad two.
Yeah.
So Rutgers is as on the border as you can get. They beat Iowa on Friday afternoon. Rutgers will move up from 76 in the net to maybe 75 or 74, and that becomes a quad two loss. Similarly, if Notre Dame loses in their ACC tournament game to Virginia Tech, Notre Dame could slip from a quad one win for Indiana to a quad two win. So still a lot of factors in play. According to the Athletic, they probably have Indiana just barely in the bracket before the day began. Maybe Indiana moves up a couple of spots. The big concern is the non-conference schedule and whether that will be used against them. However, the Bubble Watch points out that other teams such as Wake Forest had that issue. Rutgers has that issue. I believe SMU has that issue. None of this stuff functions in a vacuum. But this is an interesting part of the story here. Indiana's rousing victory gives it a chance to do something similar to Illinois on Friday. And I think that's the important piece. You can get a big win on Friday. You can get a big win on Saturday against Iowa or Rutgers, and you can really build up your story there. So that's how the smart people in the room view Indiana's tournament situation. Bottom line, Indiana's absolutely helped their cause by winning. You also, by the way, do have a head-to-head win late in the season against Michigan, a team that is also brought back into the bubble picture thanks to Indiana's comeback win. So that's how things stand. What I would recommend for people to do is follow Delphi Brackets on Twitter, DELPHI. They give you all the updates, answer your questions if you have them. The thing with Joe Lunardi on ESPN, he obviously brought bracketology to the forefront, but what Lunardi does really is kind of send out a screenshot, not too engaging. He's also been a little inaccurate over the last few years as far as the teams and the seeding. Delphi Brackets is graded out really well, plus Indiana basis. So there we go. Make sure you give them a follow. They have every bit of information you need to know. Indiana's in the mix. They'll be under consideration, and they will be under consideration all the way up until Saturday night. So that's where things stand. Bottom line, though, exciting to see Indiana win their way in. I think that's the story here if you're a Hoosier fan. It's not a matter of Indiana getting in through their close losses and kind of stumbling backwards into the field. This was a matter of Indiana going to Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indy and grabbing the bull by the horns over those final 12 minutes, not allowing a shot make a field goal for the Wolverines over an 11-minute span, going on a 31-9 run and exerting some of your dominance, gaining that respect, beating the Wolverines, and now Indiana firmly in the mix as far as an NCAA tournament berth is considered. We will have a live podcast episode going on during the Selection Sunday show in a few days. So for everyone listening, make sure you head over to our YouTube stream here on the Hoosier Sound. We will have a live YouTube stream going as Selection Sunday takes place. Greg Gumbel on CBS reads off the names. We will have you up to speed with our live reactions. I see some comments in the live chat here. Looks like Andrew's joining in. Our good friend Andrew, one of the early Indiana HQ contributors. Great to see. Josh says living in Dayton. That's a fun basketball team to root for. Dayton, yeah, they're in the mix as well. Well, you're definitely going to start rooting against them if you're an Indiana basketball fan here. Over on Indiana HQ, we'll keep you updated with the list of teams you should be rooting for as Indiana makes their way in. So that's what I would say as far as Indiana's NCAA tournament hopes. But Matt, like I said, the good news is at least Indiana, at least for one night, took care of business.
Yeah, if you want to know, but yeah, that's true. And if you want to know about bracketology, go look at Delphi. They got everything you need to know. My personal opinion, this is not, I'm not a bracketologist by no means.
Dude, one day.
I consider myself a bracket projector.
I see. Okay.
I top 5% bracket predictor. For March Madness, but I'm no way predicting the field. I mean, the outcomes of the bracket. I would like to say that I think if I had to put a number on it, IU's got like an 80% chance of making it in with that Michigan win.
I was going to say the same percentage.
Yeah, if we had an 80% ESPN win percentage predictor, I'd feel very comfortable about us winning the game. I feel very comfortable.
You know who had an 80% chance to win earlier today? Michigan.
They had a 99% chance. Yeah. So nothing is safe, but I feel fairly secure that we are in. And I think Josh in the comments talked about Dayton. There's a very good chance we might end up in Dayton, right? Which means we still made the tournament, but we got to win that game to make it actually into the full dance. But I think right now, if we were to lose to Illinois, I'd bank my money on that we'd be in Dayton on the 12 seed line, which, by the way, the 12 seed line is not a bad place to be. I've talked about this before.
I want that to be the official stance of the Hoosier Sound and Indiana HQ here. I would not hold a grudge that Indiana is in the first four.
Yeah.
And is in a 12 or an 11 seed because teams in the first four have seen a lot of success recently.
UCLA.
No kidding. And by the way, you get that 12-11 seed line in general. That's not all that inauspicious. You can make some noise. So official stance of Indiana HQ. Indiana getting in the first four does not matter to me one bit. Indiana getting in as 11 or 12 seed in the end of the day does not matter to me one bit.
Yeah, I don't mind if we get in as a 10 seed. Don't get me wrong. But, and that because that means we keep winning. I think the highest, in my opinion, again, not bracketologist opinion, if you want an opinion or you want an actual super, certified opinion, go check out Delphi. But I think the highest IU to climb, let's say IU wins the dang tournament, right? Yeah. That's preposterous, but let's say they do that and we break the curse that is the Big Ten tournament. Right?
We already broke it.
I think the highest we can climb is probably the 6 or 7 seed line.
I think Indiana can get that high.
If you win the Big
Ten, I think 9 is the seed.
9? Because I was going to say that we could climb up to 9 with a win over Illinois. No, that's what I was saying.
I don't think that's the case. I think 9. So? I think 9 is the ceiling as far as the
let's say
whole title is concerned.
Let's say we beat Illinois.
Yeah.
But let's just. I'm hypothetically we win tomorrow at 11:30.
Yeah.
Right. What's our seed after that? That's regardless of the Iowa or whatever who we play next.
Yeah. I think if you beat Illinois, you get into that sort of 11 range outside of the first four. I think that's what happens.
Okay, you think we move up maybe like 4 spots
into the last 4 buys. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean that's fair.
And I think maybe you beat Iowa on Saturday, you move up to a 10, and if you beat Purdue Sunday, you move up to a 9. I think that's kind of the pathway for Indiana here as far as the best case scenario. That's how I see this playing out. Of course, again, as you pointed out, Matt, following those quality bracketologist Delphi brackets, Andy Bottoms with his work over there, both are individuals, organizations I would recommend following.
Yes.
Of course, as we've talked about, Matt, Indiana is not done yet in the Big Ten tournament. They got games coming up starting Friday morning. Yeah.
Surprisingly, we're
very
not done
unusual.
in the Big Ten tournament. I thought the Big Ten tournament over the last couple of years, I've been ingratiated.
I didn't know there were multiple days.
That's what I'm saying. I thought it was a one and done. That's what I thought.
I definitely didn't know it went into a Friday or a Saturday. I thought it was like a Wednesday, Thursday deal, and you just kind of went home.
I had no clue.
And so Indiana, thanks to their incredible, unbelievable, remarkable, ridiculous come from behind victory against Michigan, now gets a quick night's rest. Hopefully everyone meets curfew tonight. And the Hoosiers will take on the Illinois Fighting Illini, the 16th ranked team in the country, but a top seed in the Big Ten tournament. Illinois had no business being a 1 seed until Wisconsin dropped a game on Sunday evening or late afternoon to Nebraska in Madison. That essentially allowed Illinois to play their way into the number 1 seed and become co-Big Ten regular season champions. And the Illini took advantage of that opportunity. The Hoosiers currently, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, which is available in Indiana, the Hoosiers are 4-point underdogs. So that's how Indiana lines up here going into this game on Friday morning. It'll be on Big Ten Network. The Hoosiers and the Illini did face each other earlier this year in Assembly Hall, and well, folks, it did not go well for Indiana. IU held a halftime lead back on February 5th, only for Illinois to overtake the Hoosiers and win very comfortably in the second half. Matt, this is a really good Illinois team They're well balanced. They're 16th in the Ken Palm ratings. Offense is 22nd. Defense is 29th. A couple questionables on their injury report. Jacob Grandison, good rotation player. Benjamin Bosmans-Verdonk, a good rotational piece. But Kofi Coburn, Trent Frazier, Alfonso Plummer, DeMonte Williams. This Illinois team is obviously, Matt, really good.
Yeah, they are obviously really good. I mean, they want to share the Big Ten. That's and the first time. It's crazy that Illinois hasn't won a share of the Big Ten since Darren Williams was there.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy that that's the team that the Illinois last won a Big Ten title, I believe. I could be wrong about that. It could have been earlier, but that's just, it's insane to me that they've gone that long without success. IU, even in our years of absolute the last 20 years, absolute frustration, we've won 3 Big Ten titles in that span, which is insane to me. But anyways,
you're absolutely right, though. Yeah, last regular season title for Illinois, 2005.
Yeah, so it's been a long time coming for Illinois. So I am genuinely happy for them, even though that makes me kind of throw up a bit. However, I am surprised that their team is doing as well as they are with Andre Cubello underperforming as much as his preseason hype was.
Yes.
That's something that has kind of taken me aback. Now, I think that's mostly because Trent Frazier has taken a jump that, I thought Trent Frazier was a fantastic player last year, don't get me wrong, for Illinois, but he's gone from being Ayo Donsumu's, Robin to his Batman to becoming Batman. And he's taken his game up another level. And he showed that, by the way, when they came to Assembly Hall and was making haymaker after haymaker against the Hoosiers as the Hoosiers tried desperately to claw back into that game in the second half. So
he wouldn't have any of it.
No, he would not. He would not let off the gas pedal. And that's something that I kind of leads me to believe that Tamar Bates is going to get more minutes tomorrow, because he showed the ability to get whatever he wanted against Miller Kopp and against Parker Stewart.
Yeah.
I would like to see a younger, more athletic, more feisty defender against him. If that's Xavier Johnson, so be it. If that's, who I think is going to be in Scoop and Tamar Bates, I think that would be fantastic. But we got to put
Anthony Leal is someone you just mentioned at the start of the podcast.
Anthony Leal, who at times, I think Anthony Leal's not as good defensively. I think with Trent Frazier, you need somebody who's quick, and quick is not something that I associate with Anthony Leal.
No, agreed.
Not there. He's very much a Parker Stewart or Miller Kopp type defender, where he can definitely let people by him. And we need somebody to keep, Trent Frazier in front of them. So I think when it comes down to Illinois, you're really talking about stopping 2 players, really, which is, I make that sound so easy, but it's really not. You're talking about Kofi Coburn and Trent Frazier. And I'll just keep it short. I don't think we're going to stop them tomorrow.
No,
I don't.
We'll get your official prediction here in just a minute. I will add a third player to that list. I think Alfonso Plummer has established himself as one of the more dangerous perimeter players in the Big Ten. When you go back and you look at the first match between Indiana and Illinois, the Big Three, Coburn, Frazier, and Plummer combined for 54 out of 74 points. Indiana scored 57 in the entire game. So that's pretty much where that positions itself. Indiana did not have Rob Finney in the first matchup. Of course, the Hoosiers will have him back, and that'll help against Frazier, against Plummer in the backcourt. DeMonte Williams as well, who's a little bit of a do-everything type of player in Illinois' starting lineup. So that's what you can look forward to. Jordan Geronimo had a very good game against Illinois the first time out. Geronimo went +3 against the Illini in 15 minutes. And in case you hadn't heard, Geronimo went +21 today against Michigan. The second best mark was Xavier Johnson at +13. The third best was Trey Galloway at +12. Everyone else was sort of a big gap. And then after that, so Indiana's 3 best players today, probably in no order, it's arguable. Jordan Geronimo, Xavier Johnson, Trey Galloway, of course, then Trace Jackson Davis with the statistical output that he had. Of course, Jackson Davis's biggest thing today, if you ask me, was his availability. 36 minutes, exactly what you want to see in a match against Hunter Dickinson. That's going to be incredibly important tomorrow against Kofi Coburn. That's what you'll be looking forward to see. Make sure you jump on Twitter an hour before the game and check in on updates on those two key Illinois rotational pieces, Jacob Grandison, Benjamin Bosmans-Verdonk, two guys who have played decent minutes for Illinois this year. Grandison was really good against the Hoosiers in the first matchup. He had 6 points. Plus 19 in a 17-point Illinois win. But I specifically remember two big threes he hit in the second half that helped Illinois create some separation in this matchup. I'm really interested to see, as I look at Illinois' statistical profile and I look at Indiana's statistical profile, can Indiana go out there and turn Illinois over a little bit? Can you force Illinois to make some mistakes? Of course, Illinois hasn't played since Sunday. They're coming off a very emotional win over Iowa, Big Ten tournament win over Iowa. I'm sorry, a Big Ten regular season championship clinching win over Iowa. Can you maybe force Illinois into some mishaps in the first half? Illinois also plays slow tempo. And what that means is, unless they execute at an exceptionally high level, this game should be pretty close when it's all said and done. I said Indiana plays at a pretty slow tempo. Illinois, not that fast either. So when you see this type of matchup, both teams play at a generally slow pace. When it comes to crunch time, Illinois struggles a little bit with making their free throws, 72% in conference play, which is 8th out of 14 in the Big Ten. Indiana, of course, not great themselves, but that's where that kind of situation lays itself out. Matt, overall, as you look at these two teams, who wins between Indiana and Illinois, and by how much?
Like I have alluded to before, I think Illinois wins this game. If Indiana were to win this game, I think they got to win through, one, being physically imposing on Illinois. You're not going to do it through height, but you can do it through quickness and toughness. And you got to be the quicker and tougher team in this matchup, and that's something that's very hard to do against a Brad Underwood team. But they got to at least attempt to try it tomorrow. And a defensive performance like we saw for the last 12 minutes against Michigan has to be the majority of the performance against Illinois. You're not going to get, I don't think you're going to get 40 minutes of that, but if you can get 25 minutes of that tomorrow, I think that might be good enough to win. But look, today we won through defense. Tomorrow we're also going to have to win through defense. That's this team's strong suit. That's what they live and die by, and they have to play their best defensive game tomorrow to win. So I think that's not going to happen. Not that I would love to be proven wrong, but I think Illinois wins 70-66. I think the 4-point projection is correct. I think it'll be a close game down the stretch. Illinois will make a couple more plays. Trent Frazier is going to hit a dagger 3-pointer at some point and break my damn heart. But I think a close performance and a 4-point loss to Illinois when they have full rest and we're coming off playing the day before, I think that looks good. I think that's a good loss in my opinion.
Now, here's the thing, Matt. I look at our live chat and I see Nick, who says that he actually thinks Indiana can beat Illinois.
I look
at what has taken place over the last 12 hours, 8 to 12 hours here with Indiana's win against Michigan, the Hoosiers somehow beat the Wolverines with Indiana just showing up for 13 minutes.
That's true. It's true.
If Indiana plays 40 minutes, they're going to win this game.
Yes. If they play 40 minutes like we did against Michigan, we're going to win the national title.
Well, we didn't. Yeah, exactly. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, to me, Indiana's two most complete 40-minute performances came at home against Ohio State and came at Maryland. If Indiana can re-channel that sort of 40-minute performance, IU can win this game.
Yes.
I think that's going to happen. I think Indiana is going to get the job done on Friday morning. I think the Hoosiers are going to beat the Illini. Mostly because when I look at the two teams here, the one area where Indiana stands out is in the turnover department. I mentioned how Illinois doesn't turn you over that much. Well, Illinois also turns it over a little bit. Illinois is going to have a few days off. And I just think Indiana is going to play with a little bit less pressure on their shoulders. And that's going to be the first such instance really since the beginning of the year. Especially, I would say, since the 5-game losing streak. Yep. And maybe Indiana didn't play with too much pressure on their shoulders when they went to College Park and beat Maryland. But really after that, right, the Hoosiers had that 5-game losing streak, starting with the home loss to Illinois. And every game since then has been a very anxiety-riddled affair.
Yeah.
Understandably, whether it's the stuff the Hoosiers could control, like the suspensions, or the things they couldn't control, like, a team like Wisconsin or Ohio State hitting some key shots late in regulation. At the end of the day, I think as long as Indiana shows up for 40 minutes and wins the turnover battle, I think they're going to come away with a win against the Illini. I don't think it's going to be lopsided by any means. I think Indiana is going to win a defensive nail biter. I have it 64-62. Hot take. I'll throw this out there. Let's give one more clutch game winner to Big Shot Rob Finney on Friday early afternoon there. So if it happens, you heard it here first. If it doesn't happen, I have no idea what you're even talking about. This podcast never existed. So that's how I see this thing play out. I just feel like the last 12, 13 minutes that Indiana showed is going to parlay into more here, whether it's in the Big Ten tournament. I think Indiana is going to hear their name called on Selection Sunday. And once again, here on the Hoosier Sound, we will be live as the names are listed out and placed on the bracket. So either it'll be elation and happiness as the Hoosiers are in the field, or we will be furious at how an Indiana team that beat Michigan didn't make the NCAA tournament. And then we realized, oh yeah, it was because of a crappy non-conference schedule and they didn't really beat anyone until they beat Michigan.
Well, thank God we play Kansas next year.
And so, Matt, as we wind down your Thursday night special episode of the Hoosier Sound, any closing thoughts here? As Indiana gets an unreal comeback win by 5 against the Michigan Wolverines.
I last thought the weirdest looking box score of all time. 46% from the field, 73% from the line, 53% from 3. That is what IU shot today. Is that replicable? No. But you can shoot better than 46% from the field, and you can shoot about 40% from 3, and I'd be happy. So tomorrow, can Xavier Johnson show up and be the player that we all want him to be tomorrow? Can Trace Jackson Davis be Trace Jackson Davis against somebody that is a mismatch against him? And can we get a bench contribution from Trey Galloway, who I think we can count on now to get bench rep, Rob Finney, and one other player? It's got to be Geronimo. It's got to be Tamar Bates. It's got to be, heck, it could be Christian Lander. It's got to be someone off the bench. We got to get 3 people off the bench in double figures at least minutes. If we can do that, and they play well, I have a very sneaky suspicion that we're going to be in for a great game tomorrow.
I just, we've had sort of my final thoughts here are that we've been on this podcast for a while, Matt. I mean, we've done this for I think 3 years now. I think our first year that I was on was the Romeo Langford season, and so we've kind of realize some consistent narratives with IU basketball, and it's that Indiana doesn't win in the Big Ten tournament, and Indiana doesn't play in March Madness, and Indiana doesn't beat Purdue, and they don't beat Michigan, they don't beat Ohio State except for a couple games here and there. Indiana had 2 goals at the start of this year. It was to make the NCAA tournament, and to me, much more ambiguously, sort of gain respect within the Big Ten. Right? Gain a little bit more gravitas, a little bit more, show yourself to be a little bit more of a threat in the Big Ten. I was talking to my brother earlier today. I think if you asked Juwan Howard before the game, who do you take more seriously as a program? Rutgers, he would answer Rutgers pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Who do you take more seriously, Juwan Howard? Do you take, Northwestern or Indiana more seriously? I think he'd answer Northwestern. And when Indiana goes out there the way they do and come back in the second half and show that fight and show that toughness, that's how you change the answers to those questions back to Indiana. And Indiana's been doing this throughout the year. You beat Purdue, lost a nail biter to them. You beat Ohio State, lost a nail biter to them. You won a couple games on the road like you did at Maryland and at Minnesota. And now you did this to Michigan. So 2 goals, make the tournament and gain some respect for the program. And I think Mike Woodson accomplished that goal of respect today, and we'll just have to wait till Sunday to see if they lock down the goal of making the NCAA tournament. But that about wraps it up for our 244th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Thank you to our live audience. You are all beautiful people. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard tonight, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you on Sunday.
Peace, love.